Hi, everybody, and welcome to Red Wings Rant, where tirades and impassioned pleas for your Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah.
Hey. Hope. Hey, Mike.
Always go out with a whimper. What's up, Matt?
It's
been a minute since we had an episode.
Just sporting, some of the elites of Detroit sports area in the region. Of course, there's
Wait,
winners, Detroit Lions.
Is that a Tigers hat?
Yeah.
Nice.
I was going to take a runny dump on the Red Wings, but you ruined it with that question. But anyway, division leading Lions. There's the a little bit of a stumble, but biggest turnaround in NBA history, Detroit Pistons. And of course, Major League Baseball leading with another victory in the afternoon today. Mike, your Detroit Tigers. Man,
Jared wants to say, man, what a special occasion. Matt, with a forward-facing hat.
Forward-facing hat? Weird. Mike, it just makes you think. Like, with this level of ownership, the ownership that cares so much about these other Detroit sports franchises, you got to wonder what's going wrong with one in particular that can't get it right. But then you look at El Tigre, and everybody wants to point the finger away from Mr. Yzerman and towards the Illich family, who seems to be getting something right. I mean,
yeah, if Steve was going to pick one of the Detroit sports franchises to emulate and be like, this is what we can be, I got to think he's looking at the Tigers, who people gave a lot of criticism to in their past offseason for not making big, sexy moves. Maybe you could make the case that, like, bringing back Jack Flaherty or, Alex Cobb to kind of round out the rotation. Gleyber Torres, they're not the biggest, sexiest moves. And Steve obviously hasn't really had any huge, sexy moves, unless I guess you could throw DeBrincat in there.
Nope.
Nobody else wanting to pay Kane as much.
No, those don't qualify.
For the most part, it's the Tigers kind of using guys that they drafted, right? With Torkelson, Green, Skubal, those kind of players. So
yeah. But there's always the call to action on the NHL side of things of for fans of the NHL, basically saying you need to give us some wiggle room, because this is hockey. It's way harder to build a team, Mike. So you got to look for ways.
Speaking of really good teams, Matt,
the draft,
the guys who churn out Resident Evil games. Yeah. I look like Resident Evil 7, and you kind of look like Resident Evil 2 right now, but not the remastered version.
I can't even place it. I don't even know.
It's just the resolution is a little grainy. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Jared throws out there Matt's bandwidth sucks right now. Okay. Well, I suppose I could reload. I don't know if that kicks Mike out of the system. Yeah, I think
we're going to learn.
Yeah. All right. I'll be right back.
Somehow even Matt reloading his screen is taking a minute here. Or maybe he's just dutifully keeping his Matt smile all the way through this episode, which would be nice, because I know there's been some times where people were calling for me to talk and put the mute button on Matt. So I don't know if that dream is coming to fruition today, but it looks like we might have 2 Matts. Oh, no, that's not what we wanted. Fewer Matts. Boo, fewer Matts, not double Matts. There we go.
What'd you guys talk about while I was gone?
how nice it was to get a break from you.
Oh, that's nice. Well, the transition I was attempting to make was how you got to be a little different than just building up your roster through the draft, Mike, in the NHL, because we're so special. But performance we got to go to the comments early and often today because it's been so long since we've been talking to you guys. It breaks my heart. Performance are coming in hot. Marner, let's go. 13 mil a year, baby. Dropping them.
If that's the only thing holding the Red Wings back, they should be ashamed. You got to pay somebody on your team $13 million. I mean, if you want to be a serious team.
So let's roll back a little bit here. We've the banter is, but we don't have a good cadence going, right? Like we've been talking over each other. We're both dying to make a reference or a joke. My video's not working. But if we set the stage here, Mike, the last time we recorded was pre-Steve Yzerman press conference.
Oh, what an all-timer that was. Yeah.
We, unfortunately, like our schedules didn't line up for a little bit there. We were watching AC/DC. I was going out of town. Last week, I just wasn't feeling it. Like, I was like, no. The story is, I texted Mike early in the morning, and then it was like 4 o'clock, and I was like, I really hope Mike doesn't text me back. Like, I was like, I really don't want to record tonight. But yeah, you guys get it. Work sometimes is work, and it sucks. But we're back now, 3 weeks after the Steve Yzerman press conference, and I referenced that because I wanted to call into question Helene St. James' question, where she was like, "Steve, are you ready to spend $10 or $11 million on a player?" I believe was her question.
Yeah,
and Steve gave his answer, which he says he thinks he's ready. The hell's Helene thinking? What sport does she cover? She's thinking too small, man. 13, 14. That's where her head should have been at. Ask Steve if he's ready to drop 14 bills for Marner. I almost said Mariner. For Marner. Like that. I don't want to, come on. You're thinking way too small, Helene. Also, you're not paying attention to the sport that you cover. Mike, I do want to talk about this today. We've had some teams eliminated from the playoffs while we've been out. Yeah. And, there was that possibility, right? Like Maple Leafs could have made it to the Eastern Conference Finals and maybe to the Stanley Cup Finals. Maybe the conversation would be a little different. But instead, we're going to be talking about a team that got eliminated in probably the most embarrassing way, despite making it to Game 7. Maybe the only more embarrassing way is if they had lost 4 straight and had a 3-0 lead. But arguably one of the most embarrassing ways to end a 7-game series. And you had players on the team that were giving either I loved playing here, instead of saying, I'll be here next season, which would be Mitch Marner. Or you had Austin Matthews burying his roster, his buddies. And, we'll get into that. But it just seems like there's a lot of options opening up in Toronto. And, we've got things to talk about. I don't know. I'll pause there to give you a chance to give us some early thoughts here.
Well, I think the first thing we want to talk about here on the Red Wings Rant is somebody in the comments wrote that wasn't a fart, alluding to a potential fart from the general manager of the Detroit Red Wings. And I just want to assure you, I would never have never farted.
What do you think about this one, Mike? He looks like Tom Hardy in that picture.
He looks like if Tom Hardy farted, it would come out kind of shaped like Tom Hardy, but more of a farty, vapory version.
He's giving kissy face right now. I'm all about it. I was going through all the pictures.
Like a Brett Michaels kind of thing.
Yeah.
That pursed lips thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like my son got a bunch of Batmans. He had a Batman-themed birthday party. He got a bunch of Batmans this weekend. He got more today from Michelle and I. And we were looking at Mike, we were looking at the different Batmans he received, and we were like, "That's Michael Keaton. Those are Michael Keaton lips."
They sure are. Those big Michael
big,
Keaton,
juicy Keaton
floppy meats. I like those.
Okay, so let's talk about the press conference though before we get into signing Mitch Marner. We talked about this, Mike.
Can I ask first? Did you guys watch that press conference? It's now. There's been enough time. It's been 3 weeks, and I don't usually like to buckle in for those. Like, I feel like a lot of the times they're just kind of fluff pieces, kind of fluffy questions. Guys are, in a position where they want to kind of maintain relationships with players, management, coaches, not have to burn bridges when they're trying to get interviews and stuff like that. This might be one of my favorite, postseason interviews I've ever seen. And it's not so much that I thought Steve gave great answers. I thought he gave some really confounding answers, to be frank. But I thought that the journalists really nutted and overied up because they had some incredible questions for Steve that I the way he's been so, gotten the holy blessing, anointed, from a large sect of the fan base. I think it was just super surprising that there were some really tough questions for Steve to try to answer. A lot of them, namely, do you think you're going to keep your job? Do you think you're on the hot seat? Asking him kind of tough questions about Larkin's press conference. In the preceding days, his reaction to that, his reaction to his team falling apart at the trade deadline every year. And basically asking, what are you going to do to change this? So hats off to everybody in that room throwing the questions at Steve. It really felt like they did a great job putting him on the spot because he does have some things to answer for. And we can kind of get into some of his answers being puzzling, to kind of say the least. But he did give us some meat to chew on. I will say that they weren't all complete. They weren't outside of the question about what happened with Walman. Can you expand on it, elaborate? Just give us a little peek behind the curtain about why this guy had to have a pick included. Then he gets traded in a subsequent trade for a first-round pick. What changed here? And that was the only time he really said, "I'm not going to answer that." But other than that, I thought he gave some pretty interesting responses.
Do you want to touch on that for a minute? Because I feel like there's some hot takes we can pull from that.
From the Walman exchange?
Mm-hmm. Because it calls into question, especially with a guy like Joel Quenneville, who had been reinstated and now has a new job in the NHL. And we learned a lot of things from the Chicago Blackhawks, and the NHL learned nothing because they're like, yeah, everybody come right back. It's fine. We have Bowman out in Edmonton, and now Quenneville. He's Anaheim now? Do I have that right? Anyway. All right. Now I bring that up because what Steve is doing is if something went down, right? Like it can't be a skill thing because we're watching Walman be a key piece for the Edmonton Oilers right now, who are on their way to potentially a second straight Stanley Cup final. And this was a piece they absolutely needed. And you could see it. Yeah. You can see it makes the difference for Edmonton. They now have balance throughout this entire their defense. They can put all their lineups out there, and it's helping create more balanced offense. And it's just everything Edmonton needed. So it's not a skill issue. There was an injury, but nothing we ever heard was would you hide that in a press conference? Steve, why did you not trade Jake, or why did you trade Jake Walman? We had injury concerns. Okay, that's legitimate. We actually thought that would be a problem. The assessment would have been incorrect. Same thing with skill. Oh, we thought skill was an issue here. Man, did I bone that one, because then San Jose turned around and got a first-round pick. So it's not skill. It's not injuries. So, is there something that happened behind the scenes? And did we learn nothing from Chicago when it comes to secrecy, when it comes to hiding this kind of thing? What I don't respect in this approach is that there could be something going on. Now I have to wonder what it is. And the worst possible thing in the world is that they're protecting someone who, if you had to make a guess, would it be the guy who made a poor choice? Would it be the guy that you traded a second round pick to get him off your team? Would that be the guy where something questionable happened? Could be. But I'm just, it's a slippery slope, right? Like, I can't say what exactly it was, but it's a slippery slope when we start playing these games of just like, I'm not going to say anything. I definitely did something that's causing everyone to raise an eyebrow and question my sanity, question my intelligence, would be Mr. Steve Yzerman talking. I did something that somebody else turned into a first round pick. I traded away second round pick to get this guy off my roster. So what the hell was it? And there's a part where, and I don't know, it was called out in the chat. I'm sorry. Somebody made mention of like, I liked his, I don't give a poop attitude. I'm sorry, I can't find it, but that would be where,
I think it was
performance
art. I like the no shit attitude, even though I didn't agree with everything said.
Right. So in that respect, where he's at this moment where something could be revealed, I just don't want to find out like they're protecting someone in all of this, and I think that would be horrible. And it just
someone. What does that mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you say protecting someone?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like if we're not going to reveal what was going on and we think that something negative happened and we're not going to talk about it, you can come back to Chicago Blackhawks and the Kyle Beach situation. Like, what was so horrible, or what happened that was so horrible you needed to get this guy off your roster? Because again, it wasn't injury, wasn't skill. So there's something in there.
So it wasn't related to hockey. It was something personal. Right.
Was it personal? Was it, like that's where all of this doesn't make sense. And I think a reporter, whoever asked that question, which I think it was Rieger, asked that question. Good for him, because we need to find out what the hell happened there. But that's not enough. But I just don't want to find out that this team, that this management, this group is protecting someone or not revealing something because they want to make sure that their career's not hurt. But I think
I think we have a right to know. Pretty amazing that the Red Wing intel was that it was so bad that we're going to have to attach the actual value to what is now a zero or net negative asset. It's so bad that we have to attach something. But now this intel didn't bother the Sharks, and it certainly hasn't bothered the Oilers, because I got to think that these guys are communicating like, why are you making this trade with us? We're just gonna give them to you, and don't ask any questions. Okay, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to harp too much on the Walman thing because we don't have any information about why this happened. It's just, I don't know what you want to harp on too much for Steve. Is it just that you thought you were going to get more from this interaction?
Did I think I was going to get more? No, I mean, if I had to predict like what Steve would do, I think
this is the exact thing I would have expected him to do. Yeah, it's none of your business. I'm not going to tell you.
Right. Why is it none of our business? Are we not spending money on this franchise? Are we protecting someone?
So Crimson, I like their take, because they said if Walman did something this sketchy, I'm certain it would have come out by now. Yeah, I mean, geez, Pete, like there's literally cameras, cell phones, like this kind of stuff's all over the place. And it was, It wasn't bad enough to scare the Sharks, and it certainly wasn't bad enough to scare the Oilers. So I don't know. Yeah, it's really puzzling.
Yeah. So the other side of this too, who the question is like, who is he protecting? The other person in the equation is protecting himself. He made the wrong call on something, and if he reveals why he made that trade, he's potentially going to look like an idiot. So I just
that is by far the funniest outcome, right? That Steve didn't want to divulge what happened because it was just, I really need cap space if I want to bring in these other guys, and I gotta, if I'm making somebody fill out their cap sheet, then I got to attach an asset that's free. So here's a draft pick.
I just think, like Performance Art throws out there, I think sometimes we forget that these are privately owned businesses and they don't have to tell us SHIT. That's
right.
Not good relations, but they don't have to say anything. Yeah. Couldn't argue with that at all. But if I was a member of the media, every single time I ask Steve Yzerman a question going forward, I would introduce Steve, the answer of my question, and I would say, Steve, as the GM who traded Jake Walman away for the second round pick, if you want to divulge on what happened there, no? Okay. What I wanted to ask you was this. I would do that, and I would organize all the rest of the media members to do that because we thought that was a boneheaded move at the time. We hated it. Things are working out pretty good for Jake right now. Things aren't working out pretty great for the Red Wings right now. We have a hole, Mike. We could use, you know what we could use? We could use a defenseman on the left side. That'd be pretty great right now.
Can I say something else too? Like if
one of those two guys that are in the conference finals right now that we've lost in the last season, one of those two guys would be nice. Go ahead. I'm talking about Goss Despair.
If Yzerman's going to claim it's not hockey related, right?
Yeah.
It's not about skill or anything on the ice. Do we think then that Walman should be standing up for himself because he's essentially still getting thrown under the bus by Steve, that you did something so egregious, like in the public light, that we're willing to trade you and like have to eat another asset to do so? So it's kind of like personally on Walman's end, he'd be like, hey, I'm kind of a little defamation of character here, but
yeah,
there's no pushback. Instead, his hockey career just continues, and he's really close to being a Stanley Cup champion now because of thank you to Steve.
I think that was my tack with as a media member, was because I would attach the notion of like never forget. Steve did this. Okay, but I did kind of, I was queuing us up to have this conversation. But then you mentioned Jake Walman, and I was like, I feel like nobody's talking about like how horrible this is that we don't get an answer for Jake Walman, especially with the track record of the NHL.
Yeah,
but
let's move on from that one too, because there's a lot to cover. Yeah.
No, that's first 5 minutes. This is from Max Boltman. Is Yzerman addressed the scrutiny of his quiet trade deadline, declared his willingness to use draft picks, prospects, any player to trademark in the trade to make the Red Wings better. Spoke to the fans directly, saying he understood the demand and the want for success here, which is such a weak comment. Am I crazy?
I think we've had a lot of questions about where Steve, he's so desperate to cling to his draft picks and cling to the guys that if they're not picks, it's the guys he drafted. He's like, oh, we're gonna do this the right way. We're just gonna develop a bunch of guys. So in a way, I think that was a little refreshing to kind of feel like we don't mind making a trade, but we want to feel like the value's there. I think one thing that we should include with this comment about putting things on the table is how aggressively critical Yzerman and his new coach McClellan were of the captain, Dylan Larkin, who, yes, he is the highest paid player. Yes, he does have the C on his jersey, so he's got, things to answer for on the ice. This was not his best season. He'd be the first to admit it. but they definitely called out Larkin a lot, like not just for his play on the ice, but for his leadership. And they basically said, there's a couple teams that are our peers that are in the playoffs right now because they have better leadership that our leaders didn't display. And so that's why we're on the outside looking in. I'd say two takeaways are like it feels like anything is on the table with those comments. And by anything, it sounded like they were alluding to, yes, we would trade Dylan Larkin.
I'd agree with that.
And it also, like... I guess they were also kind of making him a scapegoat, where it felt like, well, hey, it's not the players that Steve Yzerman assemble. It's not my fault. And McClellan was like, well, I can only coach so much. You got to have the players who got to want it. You got to have the leadership. So it wasn't my coaching. So really an incredible takeaway for management and the direct, like, father of the players, McClellan, who's got to be there to, get the sheep in the pen. Both of them blaming the best player on the team, which is an incredible take, because I don't know if that's really a successful path, is blaming your best player. That's while he's still on the team, mind you, blaming your best player for what happened this year.
And doing that and attaching a pretty wild, like, comparison, because if we all remember here, and I pulled up the playoff tree on NHL.com.
Well,
Steve referenced, Mike, a couple of teams that were at the time in the playoffs.
Ooh,
Mike,
I think Dan B's ahead of you, by the way. But yeah.
Well, yeah, Dan B's got Montreal and Ottawa, but Ottawa did make some trades. Steve called out St. Louis and Montreal. And Mike, Montreal got handled by a Washington Capitals team that when they faced a real NHL team, boy, oh boy, did they get handled. So same could be said on St. Louis's side. Winnipeg, once they fought or went up against a real team, they were reintroduced to the NHL. So not only are those two teams out, the teams that eliminated them were also taken care of pretty handily. Steve chose the absolute, like, at the time it worked, but it was to me, it's it's more evidence of, like, the short term, and like in the short term, what's going to happen here with this team and, like, the bad decision making, because that's just a little tiny version of it, because he attached himself to two teams that very clearly were not Stanley Cup contenders. And it's like, that's great, Steve. We wanted you to be the Dallas, the Carolina Hurricanes, the Edmonton Oilers. You could have kept Jake Walman and been closer to Edmonton Oilers, at least sans Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. And of course, the Florida Panthers, who brought on Brad Marchand. Mike, it kind of seems like the teams that made the huge splashes on the trade deadline, and even before, like Carolina, seems like they've had quite a bit of success this year. And if somebody wants to jump in the comments or listening to this tomorrow on their drive and say, well, yeah, but we didn't have a good enough roster. We didn't have as good a roster as the Florida Panthers, the Carolina Hurricanes, Oilers and Florida, both in the Stanley Cup Finals last year. Dallas and Edmonton, both in the Western Conference Finals last year. They've got to make every move they possibly can. So why isn't our roster good enough, Mike? Who puts that together?
I know who to blame. His name's Dylan Larkin. I'm gonna do the exact same thing our GM and coach did.
Which
somehow it's his fault. Yeah.
A GM, like, this would be the same as Steve turning around and saying, whoever the a-hole is that hired Derek Lalonde, that's his fault. And now he's turning around and saying, man, whoever signed this Dylan Larkin guy to an 8-year contract, you know what? The guy who signed him probably doesn't have a lot of leadership experience, especially in the NHL. Not a good judge of character. The wildest part about this is that he's damning his own decisions. He's damning himself and his own ability to make decisions in this press conference, and nobody's talking about that. Why? How do we let him get away with this? Who's the idiot that put this crappy team together? That's what Steve wants to know. Who put this roster together? And that's why I made a decision not to do anything at the trade deadline. Damn it.
I mean, we're only 2 seasons removed from, Larkin having an incredible run, right? And we thought, cool, this team's, my God, this might be the year that we reestablish ourselves as a playoff team. And then he got hurt, and we had that god awful stretch. And the end of the year came, and it's like, we're a point short. If we don't lose Larkin for a month, our best player, our captain, our leader, the heart of this team, we would have made it. So then the next year comes, mostly the same team, without Gostisbehere, right? We again don't make any big moves, and Larkin seems to play like crap right around the trade deadline. And I'm sorry, but the Steve Bot phrasing, like that term, I think it's starting to apply more to Steve himself, because now all I picture is this robot behind the curtain with an abacus. And if his little tiles on the abacus don't lead to a trade victory for him and his little whatever calculus he's doing back there, he just doesn't do anything. But it's like he's forgetting that I know that we're paying the money, right? I know Larkin is paid a lot of money, but he also took a discount to stay on this crappy team with this crappy roster, which for a long time before McClellan, I think we all had questions about the coaching. And to ask him once again to have the robot with the abacus say, well, I'm not technically winning this trade by a landslide, so we're going to just stand pat again. I think as the Steve Bot, it's asking a lot of the humans to still have the passion to keep going and fight as hard as they can. So it's like, can I just give a basketball counterexample before you strangle me? People laughed.
Yeah.
People laughed the Detroit Pistons out of the NBA this past offseason because they signed Tobias Harris. They're like, oh, they're getting a retread. They're getting a guy on a retirement deal, overpaying him. He's old. What are they doing? And they're just like, yeah, but we think he's going to fill a role for us. And it was an important signing. It showed the players on the team, hey, Cade, our best player, we know you need somebody who can hit threes and, play at that position. We're going to set this up for you. And it worked so well. The Pistons almost beat the team that's going to go play for the finals in a week. And they signed a 31-year-old retread because they knew it could still work out. So I don't know if the calculus and the abacus would have signed a Tobias Harris, because looking at the numbers, it's an older guy, right? It's a guy who's be blocking maybe somebody, 6-7 years younger who could be getting minutes at that spot. But it was an important move, and I think it helped kind of make everybody feel like, hey, we're trying to win right now. We're trying to win today. And that today move has set this team up 4 years, where now you kind of have a direction. You kind of know what you want to do. You kind of know areas you can improve on. You get a little taste of the playoffs. But the Red Wings are so terrified of, what if we screw up our 4 years from now, that their today moves are, pitiful.
Well, Dan B says, I came here for cheering up and looking forward, not this.
I'm sorry. So we didn't touch base on that press conference, and it was some of the most fascinating Red Wing commentary that we've had in years. We don't get very much from Steve, so for him to come out and frankly look a little afraid and be a little angry, and maybe this is what it's going to take, putting his back to the wall and kind of, having all the journalists gang up on him and be, not mean, but persistent. And what are we doing, man? We're tired of this product. Like, maybe this is kind of what it takes to instill some change.
Yeah, I mean, it's very telling too that Steve had to go to bat with a backup. Like, I need my sidekick here so that I I can take a breath between these questions. And how about there was the one question too? I'm just going to mention this one real quick, and then we're finally going to transition into what we want to talk about.
Yeah.
But when Steve was asked the question, he's just like, "I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention." That guy, I don't know how we look at that and not say like, all right, this is turning into a problem. Like, I get it. Like, everybody, like, we want to say we're playing the long game here. We're going to be patient with our draft picks, and the cupboard was empty. There's nothing for Steve to do except sign Andrew Kopp and Ben Sherratt.
Justin Hall.
But
Tarasenko.
You have some of those, you had some of those instances where we were watching, like when days were numbered for Jeff Blashill, and he'd go into a press conference and just be like, "I got nothing. I don't know what's going on anymore."
Real quick, Dan B with a shot at comment of the episode saying, "I'm sorry, I wasn't listening."
But that's one of those pieces of evidence that we're going to come back to and be like, I mean, the guy is 1,000 miles away in a press conference like that. I don't know if you can sit there, like somebody could tell me right now, he's right now, he's crafting his next trade. Mike, do you really think that he's 1,000 miles away in that press conference? Because he's like, I just got a bang up idea. I got to keep noodling on this one before
I think he was thinking about he felt like he won the questions, so now he was kind of relaxing. That's why I wasn't paying attention.
Jared says Yzerman needs to figure this out, or he's going to get an 8-hour one-on-one interview with Helene St. James.
Oh, can I add a caveat? A televised 8-hour one-on-one interview on YouTube. Ugh. But Tama Lama, welcome. I don't remember that name, Tama. Welcome. Saying personally, I don't think Larkin has been the leader he should be. Kane and DeBrincat were better leaders on the ice. This past season, Larkin seemed mopey. I do think Larkin was mopey. I don't think that there's really much to debate there. I think maybe the lasting image, it could be the lasting image of his Red Wing career, was the sad face he was making at his press conference. I will, as somebody wearing a Kane jersey, Tamalama, as somebody currently wearing a Kane jersey, I will say that I don't know if Kane was the best leader because he can't play defense anymore. But DeBrincat, I do agree with. I think he was a better leader because that guy was kicking ass, scoring, 40 goals. So
I'm going to push back a little bit. Tama, I kind of like it.
Yeah?
I kind of like...
I'm saying it as a Kane jersey. I bought the Kane jersey.
No, like if you go back, rewind through the different interviews throughout the year.
Yeah.
Kane really is more engaging. Like he really and he goes all in on the, they have his kids involved with all of that before the game stuff. And he thinks it's awesome. And he's probably going to stay around with Detroit because they treat his family so well. Yeah. But he's all in. He does the goofy stuff with DeBrincat. When was the last time you saw Larkin do like one of these goofy? It's not like Kane's. He's not being a goofball.
Probably since they traded Bertuzzi away. That was the last time Larkin had a nice day at work. The day before the trade.
He said, the best hockey he's played in his whole career was at the Four Nations. And then he came back to this, and it just kind of felt, to Tama's point, it just kind of felt like a different Dylan Larkin. He just felt the losing, and he just kind of gave up. And I'm one who would push back on Steve Yzerman and say and Todd McClellan and just be like, guys, I get it. We're humans. We have to motivate ourselves. But at some point, there's work you guys can do. We're not all helpless. I don't know. It's a little bit of we're doing a little victim blaming on poor Dylan, who has to put up with this every year. But Eddie Hoozles.
I got a couple comments in a row I really liked. First, Jared saying, Matt wants Kane to be the next Red Wing captain. You heard it here first. Thank you, Jared.
I know. What a turnaround. I didn't even want to sign him. And now I'm like, come on, Brent.
There's plenty of room Plenty of room for you here on Cane Island. Go ahead and buy a nice 88 showtime. But Crimson coming in hot, saying, I don't think the captain matters. What do you have a team with Hall, Petrie, Moose, Gus, JV, Fish, and Vladdy? Crimson, why's this list? It gets longer every year. You ain't winning with that kind of list. Crimson, really hard to push back on that, brother.
9 minutes ago, Crimson threw out, people want Mo to be captain, but the guy can't even skate backwards without blowing a tire.
That was incredible. And then Crimson, I don't know what to do with this. I feel it in my heart as well, even though his numbers are just in the toilet. I'd kill to get Bert back.
I mean,
it feels like his career's
the hardest thing in the world to do.
It's going to be really mid right now, but man, there's something there. There's a little Bert magic, you know.
I'm kind of excited to see Jeff and Bert get back together this year. Like, it would be really cool if like Bert was just missing that Jeff Blashill bald head and he's gonna shine that sucker up.
35 spot next season.
Yeah, wouldn't that be cool? I'm really I know we're supposed to hate Chicago and I actually don't. Maybe you guys can give me that info. Is Jeff officially head coach of the Blackhawks, or is that still up in the air? But if he does get hired, I 100% will be supporting Jeff Blashill. I feel like, and we said it at the time too, like I was like, you gave him nothing. How would he ever have success? And to turn around and blame it on him was crazy, because we didn't really do much better without him.
So there is a New York Times article that says what coach Jeff Blashill could bring to the Blackhawks. So it's not like, you know, I was going to throw Bleacher Report under the bus because they're pretty bad. But MSN, Sports Illustrated, and New York Times, I think Blashill's about to be announced. It's right on the cusp.
Dan B throws out there, if Blashill gets Bedard and Marner and makes the playoffs, I'm going to be sick. Well, speaking of which, Steve was asked by Helene about that north of 10 million or 11 million for a player. Mm-hmm. He says, absolutely. We kind of felt that all along. We're going to look at any good player, any player that can help us in any role. If there's any player worthy of spending whatever amount, has interest in playing in Detroit, fits a need for us, absolutely, we would try that. Different stage. We're maybe 5 years ago, and that we have good young nucleus of players. And if we can add to that with a prominent free agent, we'd certainly entertain that. Mike?
Okay.
Austin Matthews and the Toronto Maple Leafs are back at it.
What is that photo?
It's golf season for Austin Matthews, Mike. Once again, the Leafs are eliminated. They can't run it back, Mike. They cannot do. It's so funny. 9 years, Mike. 9 years of this. Would you trade the last Red Wings 9 seasons for the last Toronto Maple Leafs 9 seasons?
Enjoying going to Little Caesars Arena and seeing victories during the regular season. Yeah, because I think it's just so hard to win the Stanley Cup. One team gets to do it every year. Yeah, I would. I'm
going to say this too. I think
Can I throw out another thing before you answer? The other thing that I really like about Toronto is that they've made scary moves where they're like, fuck it, we're going to eat cap space with John Tavares. Yeah, and we're going to do it for 7 years. And we're going to have 2 lines, and we'll just figure it out for the bottom 6. Hope we get some draft picks that work out. And it's just that kind of, they're, signing guys at the end of their playing days, to see if they got one last shot. Come on, you crazy bastard. Like every year they've doubled and then tripled down on, we're going to really see what these, expensive players can do. We'll round out the rest of the roster. And then we'll do some, ride off into the sunset players. Let's see if it works out. And it makes for an exciting off season for them. I feel like every regular season's exciting for them. And watching, the 18th best guy on the first round from 4 years ago kind of pan out because he almost scored at half a goal or half a point pace over, if you extrapolate it, almost half a point a pace at the HL level, and it's at almost a third of a point at the NHL level. Just think about where we're going to be 4 years from now. It's going to be pretty cool, you guys. Just got to be patient. Yeah, I can't do that anymore. I want to feel like we're trying to win Stanley Cups, not have an average team 5 years from now. Yes, I would trade for that.
Who's closer right now to the Stanley Cup? Like
the Red Wings or the rest of the NHL?
Like right now, 9 years in, they don't have a Stanley Cup, the Maple Leafs, but their situation right now, if they get the right, I guess, Shanny's out, but if they get the right leadership group in there, and the way the Leafs are structured, there's like the president and then the next guy, whatever their title is. They have so many freaking options right now. It's crazy. And they're probably going to do something close to, well, I guess you'd hope that they change leadership before they do a repeat of what the Calgary Flames did, where they said goodbye to Matthew Tkachuk and then didn't bring enough back for him. But something like that is going to happen. But they're in this realm right now where, yes, they're going to change, and maybe they'll be worse next year, but they have so much opportunity to like just maybe a little worse next year, but retool and rebuild and keep a majority of what they've built so far and make it work. They just know now that having Matthews and Marner eat up so much of the cap for what the cap was, it doesn't make sense in the long term. You can't do it without, and the Florida Panthers basically have 12 of these guys, but you can't do it without the more hard-nosed, Bennett and Verhaeghe, playoff goal scoring. Like, you can count on it, and they do the gritty stuff. They punch you in the mouth and get away with it. Like, they play dirty and score, and Toronto does not do that. So moves coming in for Toronto, but certainly one man is headed out, and he could be on his way to Detroit, Mike, to save the Detroit Red Wings. Literally everything we need here. Fantastic even strength offense. The finishing is off the charts. He's gonna fit in perfectly too with a team that does so well on the power play, because that's also a specialty of his. But it's not a severe drop off, even strength wise, like it is for a lot of guys on our team. And you know what? That's because you have a guy here who's gotten Selke votes before. This is a good two-way hockey player, Mike. And despite it all, despite the performances in the playoffs, despite a spin-a-rooney when his team desperately needed him to just shoot the GD puck, despite that horrible deke, despite the questionable decision-making, despite probably having to make him, Mike, the highest-paid hockey player in the NHL, there's 31 teams that want this guy. And I really, really hope the Red Wings land Mitch Marner, because this is exactly what we need and what is almost impossible for us to luck into with the way Steve Yzerman built this franchise.
Can I
boom? Is that even a hot take? Is that a mic drop? That's, we all know this, right?
Yeah. Just for comparison's sake, I want you to stop me when I read off a gritty player. A dirt ball. Okay. You ready? Pavel Datsyuk. Henrik Zetterberg.
Can I make an argument for both of those guys?
No, you may not.
Right off the bat.
No, man. Those guys, I'm not saying that they weren't two-way players. That's not what this is. I'm saying, like, you could make it work with Austin Matthews and Marner.
Right, but I would say that there is an element of dirty play in both of them because they were fantastic at interference that wasn't interference. And that was something that was complained about all the time in the way that those guys played, where they were hard on the puck as well and had tremendous skill. They were also fantastic at pretending that they weren't interfering while they were interfering. And that was dirty. But go ahead.
Yeah, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is we're not just trying to get knuckle draggers. You know what I mean? Like that's not why the team's not good. It's because you don't have awesome players. Or at least these are really skilled players if they're that good at masking potential interference.
You're right. You're right. And I think for Hagee and I think Matthew Tkachuk, when he's healthy, I wouldn't call them knuckle draggers at all. But I think that agrees with your point.
I'm just looking at the 08 champs: Datsuk, Zetterberg, Lidstrom, Rafalski, Hoodler, Cleary, and I can read these fast because you're not going to have one. Samuelson, Holmstrom, are you kidding me? He just stood in front of. No, he's not a knuckle dragger. Franzen, I don't know if you want to make that argument. Phillips, Kron, he's on defense, but Draper was not like a scuzzball. He skated 50 miles an hour. Lebdicelli, it's not there. So you got to score goals. I mean, that was a really skilled bunch that we just read off.
No, it was. And if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And there's none of that with the Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs are just like the good old boys, and they're trying to do it the right way, and it just doesn't work in the NHL. Like, Anthony Stolarz takes one to the noggin, he's concussed, and that's it for your goalie. And not to say, like, how do you prevent that? Well, it's just that there isn't really retaliation, and I think you would see retaliation even from Datsuk, Zetterberg, and definitely like Cronwall and Stewie had a lot of grit that they brought to the ice. But I know what you're saying, and I think the argument is just that
like you want to collect more awesome players unless they're totally just don't, like, they cancel each other out. They don't jibe well. That's what this should be about.
I think there's enough of what we're looking for from the grittiness. It's already on the roster. You know what? DeBrincat gets outplayed, but he plays his arse off. Like, he is in on the forecheck. He's just ineffective. Lucas Raymond is everything DeBrincat wants to be. He wins those puck battles. Dylan Larkin, when he's motivated, when he has a team that's winning, he wins those puck battles, and he flies up and down the ice. If we had a first line that was Mitch Marner, Dylan Larkin, Lucas Raymond, and put Mitch on the right side if you want, and Lucas will make it work on the left side, can I just say, by the way, I don't know who's like stuck in like NHL 25 and they're like, oh my God, the overall is going to go down by a point if I put him on the left wing. That's not a thing. Just cut it out. We're not going to not bring in Mitch Marner because he plays on the right wing and we have Lucas Raymond. Watch a power play for half a second. You can make it work. You guys drive me crazy sometimes. Not you guys in the chat, but sometimes I go on X every now and then. And I'm just like, this is why I don't go on X. These are the dumbest people on the planet.
Well, I don't know. I think the other thing to kind of tie it back to Steve too is he was like, well, we want to try and get like bigger. And it's like, do you really think it's just a different player size template, or is it we just need better players? I don't think that it's necessarily that we need to go out and try to draft unskilled guys who are larger. I don't think that's a solution either. I don't know.
No, I think you're right. And he even called out his own players in doing that too. So I didn't like that either. This was all just like my team didn't try hard enough, but I built a playoff team. And it's just like, did you though? Steve, did you? I don't know.
Do you like Dave B's list? Sam Bennett, Jamie Benn, Corey Perry, Evander Kane. There's a reason those guys are still playing and the Leafs aren't. You need D-bags to win in the playoffs.
Now, when I hear the Red Wings, when I hear Steve Yzerman, when I hear fans talk about we need more depth, Mike, I'm gonna do what you did.
Oh boy, Matt's gonna pull up a full team roster and make us play my stupid game. Yeah.
No, this is about taking this roster and moving everybody down a peg. The problem isn't that we need to add more depth guys. It's that the depth guys are on the team and they're being asked to do too much. If I have to hear one more freaking time that we need to add more depth and people are talking about it's the bottom six that wins you a playoff series.
It's the Andrew Kopp being on your second line that loses you so many hockey games that you don't make it to the playoffs. So it's not that he's a valueless player, right? But I really like where you're going with this. But man, would he be awesome as our fourth center? That would be some depth. If somehow you had Marner 1, Larkin 2, Casper 3, and Andrew Kopp as your fourth center, are you kidding me? That's depth right there.
Like,
but when we gotta ask that poor man with his Swiss cheese core to be the second best center on our whole team, that's when things kind of go off the rails.
Yeah, and you know, Casper's making the difference there, and you really would hope that he takes a step up, but you know, you really can't count on that. But you take a look at like the Florida Panthers roster and the way that they're built, for sure they have the toughness and grit. And it really, after one game, it really looks like they're going to sweep Carolina. And I don't think I'm calling out Carolina as like the team I want to emulate. I really do think that they're coaching first because they couldn't even handle Mikko Rantanen. But I would say Florida, Dallas, and Edmonton are what you want to look to, Mike. Those and right now I just guaranteed Carolina's winning the Stanley Cup. But How do you look at what's going on in the Western Conference and think that you could compete with that in any way? Especially if Robertson comes back. I don't know. I know he got injured in the last game of the season. I don't know what his outlook looks like, but how do you compete with that? You're not. But you get a little bit closer with Mitchie. You can put yourself in a better spot to actually make the playoffs with a regular season performer like Mitch Marner. And he plays really great in the first two games of the playoffs. But I would say right now, you also have guys that have shown some toughness and I'm going to go to the net and score a freaking goal. And I think in the bottom six, I think a guy like Bergeron is one of those guys too, that would actually end up being one of those sneaky, like, not like leads your team in points by the end. You're going to see like 4 goals at the end of a Stanley Cup run. And you're going to be like, oh man, he had those 2 goals in game 6 in the first round. And then the third round, he came in hot and got us started in game 5. And then, like that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for in my bottom 6, because we see Bergeron is always ready to go. Like, he's in the right space at the right time. He's just waiting for those opportunities, but he gets those opportunities on a consistent basis. So if you could get through game 1 and game 2 and Mitch Marner helped you score, because things haven't gotten quite as tight yet in games 1 and game 2. That's what Mitch does. He scores in game 1 and game 2. But then you have enough guys on this roster that have played hard on the boards, win puck battles, like the Larkins, like the Raymonds. And again, he loses a lot, but the DeBrinkets. And damn it all to hell, Mike, like once you move down to that bottom 6, if you've got Andrew Kopp down there to play D, and I don't know, maybe the bottom 6 does suck, but but there's solutions there that if you can make some of these guys that were being told like this team is being built through the draft, and Marco Kasper turns out to be something special, Danielson turns out to be something special, or at least good enough, and
your blue line's about to get really interesting too. Yeah.
What was that?
Oh, just that your blue line's about to get really interesting too.
God, right?
So that'll kind of make things a little bit better for the bottom 6. Damn it, Jared. Jared thrown in. Think of all the goalies you could get with the money you'd be paying Mitch Marner. Thanks, Jared.
No, that was good.
God damn it. Crimson's agreeing. Yeah, bottom depth wins you playoffs. But you got to make the playoffs to use the depth.
Yeah, don't we want to get in that space, right, where we're finally like, all right, we want to improve. We want to get one more center at the trade deadline. We're still not there. We haven't sniffed. All right, we sniffed the playoffs, but we haven't had our chance to lose in the playoffs. Like Ottawa now has seen, like, okay, we need this to get ready for the playoffs. Also, Ottawa looked so not ready for the playoffs when it started. Like now, and they heated up, right? Like it looked like they were gonna take some momentum away from Toronto, maybe make it a 7-game series because they started to figure things out. They learned some stuff. We've learned nothing.
I don't know.
You got to get there. Yeah.
I just can't stress enough. It's like, yeah, it's cool to have the depth guys, but it works because you have an awesome, top line or two. It like I think the trickle down effect is so important. Like we've fantasized about Larkin being our second line center, for years. And it's not that we don't like him. It's just it'd be cool to have somebody so good that we could put him at the second line, which I don't know if that's ever going to come to fruition. I see a slide with Austin Matthews' name on it. What are you doing with this?
This might be the easiest time. Low value.
Matt, you kind of look
Austin
like him
Matthews.
if you didn't have a hat on.
That is such an insult.
You guys kind of have the same face. What do you look exactly the same? What are you talking about?
No, we don't. We don't look anything alike. You see a guy.
His name's even Matthew. If you guys got married, you could be Matthew Matthews. But go ahead. I threw you off track there.
No, another name to consider, and most people are just like Marner's gone. But if they want to make room for Marner and make a choice between these two guys, you can help Toronto make that decision. And you could probably get Matthews right now while he's coming off a not so great season, but pull him out of Toronto. Get for both Marner and Matthews, get him out of that situation. Pull him out of there. You gotta put him in a situation to be happy again. Like it's the same story with like Elias Pettersson. You got to get him out of these bad situations. And this is another cat where I wouldn't not think about it, especially with what we did see was probably a really good two-way performance. And because of his injuries, he just couldn't shoot the puck anymore. But
yeah,
that gets fixed. You've got a really smart hockey player on your hands, a guy who can make a difference. It's just, if he's not scoring, he's extremely, extremely overpaid. So you cross your fingers that's going to work out.
Crimson wants to know, Matt, is your hairline hanging on by a thread like Austin?
Absolutely not. Look at this. Oh, maybe it is.
It kind of looks the same. Yeah. You guys are exactly the same. I don't know what you're talking about, man.
I got good head of hair. I got that compliment all the time. So you guys go F yourself.
Wait, you get compliments so you look like Austin Matthews?
No, that I have a good head of hair. All right.
Oh, yeah. That's good that you wear a hat then. That's smart.
I'm running out of steam, but Kyle Connor is also a part of this who just got eliminated. It's
been on everybody's list too after you look at this, but go ahead.
For Kyle, I'm a little worried. There's obviously going to be a free agent, Nikolai Ehlers. But Kyle comes up all the time because it's this conversation of another Michigan boy. Steve loves picking up his Michigan players. The finishing's there. Goal percentage is there. But he also, it's just so funny to me. It's just, I feel like maybe the cap's more manageable and that's why people are on board to do this. But my man also had a good deal of disappearing in the playoffs, but he's not the two-way player that Marner and Austin Matthews are. So I think if you want to say we're going to upgrade our first line and count on Larkin, and like think about what the upgrade would be from a goal scoring perspective, where we had Elmer Soderblom on the first line. He cannot rip it like Kyle Connor. So if you want to look at it as, are you upgrading the first line? Absolutely. I will make the argument that I do think Marner and Matthews actually fit what Steve Yzerman's looking for a little bit better, no matter how angry Detroit Red Wings fans would get with that. Because they do more than, I'll say this, they do more than the one thing. Which for Kyle, grip it and rip it.
I had one player for you because I think. Oh, you got one more slide. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, this one isn't a got eliminated, but it's one to just keep in mind because it's sort of like the what do you do to support the Matthews Marner or the Kyle Connor? I don't think Sam Bennett will be available. I think all these Florida Panthers cats are. That was dumb.
Have you been listening to a lot of Stone Cold Steve Austin? What's all these cat references? These cool ass cat. What is that?
I think that's my first time today.
You said cats like 3 times today. Yeah,
No
he's
way.
cool ass cat. Yeah. All right, continue.
I don't know. A lot of people say that. I couldn't tell you last time I listened to Stone Cold. This is the type of thing that we're going to be picking up at the trade deadline. Okay. So I know a lot of people are kind of like, oh, Sam Bennett's going to be a free agent. And they kind of underline it. And they're like, that's my sneaky pick. I'm not going to be the bozo that picks Mitch Marner. Everybody wants Mitch Marner. I want Sam Bennett. No, stop it. Sam's either not leaving the Florida Panthers or you can pick up Sam Bennett at the trade deadline. I don't need another forced Andrew Kopp for 5 years. Let's figure out what's available. Let's do what the Panthers do. Let's do what Dallas does. Let's do what Edmonton does. Let's start thinking like a winner. We'll make smart decisions with these types of players. Bring them in at the trade deadline because they're not going to score all year. So bring them in at the trade deadline. And then they'll be successful in the playoffs. Okay. Mike, your player.
It's just because I don't know if this how realistic this actually is, but allegedly there's smoke of this player. I'm just going to give you their past 4 seasons. You tell me if you're interested. 69 games played. Boner. 84 points. 82 games played. 93 points. 82 games played. 94 points. 80 games played. 91 points. Does that interest you at all?
Yeah. What position?
What if I told you they make 8.7 million?
Yes.
They play center.
Yes.
Matt, you would get them for next season and the following season. So they are not a 1-year rental. You would have to do a deal with the devil because that is Sidney Crosby. But allegedly there's smoke that he's going to get moved.
No.
Because they're trying to torpedo this thing. No? Doesn't do anything for you?
No. No, thank you.
You don't want those numbers? You don't want the leadership, Matt?
Well, you didn't give me the leadership. 8. And also
leadership, Matt.
Mike.
Leadership.
The Penguins are not going to put Sidney in this position where he's not going to get to pick like the Colorado Avalanche to go to.
I know he's going to go to a Canadian team. I know.
No, he's going to Colorado Avalanche. That's his. He wants to play with Nathan McKinnon.
Oh, I thought he wanted to stay in Canada. He's like Jesus for Canadians.
I mean, that would be hilarious if Mitch Marner went to Pittsburgh and then Sidney went to Toronto because Mitch Marner would be reunited with Kyle Dubas.
Are you prepared, by the way, for Austin Matthews to get traded to Vancouver for Pettersson?
I don't know how they could sell that to the fan base. Like, you're basically saying damaged goods who's having trouble with an ornery fan base isn't really great in the playoffs, and they're just going to go, all right, bring him on over. And you don't know who's talking. Because you don't know if it was Vancouver or Toronto who made that comment.
It's like you're playing the NHL video game and you're trading a 90 for a 90. That's what's going on.
I feel like it's even worse because it's like that.
In both cases, you didn't win a Stanley Cup. So I'm just going to try and reset the team a little bit. 90 for a 90.
Right. All right. We're also going to have the same
kind of moves.
Results.
Those kind of moves are the ones that make me sad because we don't have any 90s to trade for other 90s.
Right.
We don't have any.
Figure out.
We have some 79s. You want some 7? Can I interest you in a couple 79s? You can get the fuck out of my store, sir.
We just got to figure out whose fault it is that we don't have any 90s on our team. One day.
Probably
One day
Larkin
we'll
for
figure
doing all the team management and coaching himself.
I can't wait till next year's press conference. I asked Larkin if he wanted this guy, and he said no, so I didn't trade for him. So it's all Dylan's fault.
You know, part of the reason that we have all-star games is your best players are supposed to go out and recruit other players. So it's not really on the GM. Larkin he does a really bad job of schmoozing at all-star games. So that's why we couldn't get any players for the Detroit Red Wings.
He does a bad job. I just I knew what I was doing when I was the captain. Steve. All right, we're out of talking points. What else is there? Is there anything else new?
Nah.
Mike, what happens how long between Brendan Shanahan, who I guess his contract is up with Toronto, so it's not really getting fired. It'll be a mutual parting of ways. How long between Shanahan, his mutual parting of ways with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and him signing with Steve Yzerman to be a new pro scout, to lead pro scouting for the Red Wings? 1 week?
I really wish that we would stop signing guys from the 2002 Stanley Cup team. Can we stop doing that?
I just want Steve to be at a podium and just be like, I want to know what you did to bring, like, to find a guy like John Tavares in the free agent market. How did you do it, Brendan? Show us, tell us.
Can you show us the slideshow and the Excel slides that you referenced when you thought to add him to your team?
All right. I think we're wrapping up.
We just need a different mind in there. That's all. Jared says, no more Nepo hires, Mike. I guess they would make more sense if we won hockey games. And it's not that alumni don't do good jobs, right? Look at the Lions with Dan Campbell, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he was on the worst of the Lions. And so he was a man who bled for garbage. And so he's got garbage in his blood. And he knows how to, like, motivate these guys to be like, we're not going to take this anymore. And here we are. It's just, it doesn't feel like after you've been that good as a player, I don't know. It's just clearly not working. And I don't think the solution is to get more guys who are yes men for Steve. I don't know who's standing up to him in that room. I don't know. Or pushing back on him, I guess, because it's not working.
Well, guys, we're finally gonna sail off into the sunset here. Appreciate everybody coming back who did. We take a little bit of a break. You always risk that YouTube will.
I know we got to throw.
Make
some
sure nobody finds you.
Chewy out there buying a new car. Jim Johnson, Silver, Dan B, Jared, as always, you rascal, you. Tom Alamo, welcome aboard. Crimson, you rascal, you. But I forget anybody else.
Real quick,
those are the big contributors.
Yeah. Jim Johnson thrown out there. We need D. Can I make an argument real quick?
Matt wants to re-up Ben Sherratt. Matt, go ahead.
I would like to see what we could do with some of our prospects on the D side. And maybe see, since we don't have elite all-star talent in the top 6, if we can find some of that. Also, every team that's in the conference finals right now in the last few years is like a top scoring team in the NHL. So it's just kind of like, maybe we should.
I feel like, so you're saying we could probably get by with another Johansson, little Sandin Pellikka, little Wallander, and then we invest money. We invest money not into 4 goaltenders, but maybe only into 2, and then get some forwards.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
Jake Walman might be on the market. He's got a very, movable contract. I would contact Edmonton and see what you can do there.
Jared,
all right, guys.
Trying to clarify, Wings should get good?
That's a
Hmm?
not if Steve Yzerman has his way.
Not on my
Jerry.
watch. God damn it.
All right, guys, thanks for coming aboard. This was fun. I was
These are therapeutic sessions now.
yeah, somebody said this isn't therapy, but I feel much better right now.
I disagree wholeheartedly. This is entirely therapeutic for Matt and I.
Yeah, this is great. All right, guys, thanks for coming aboard. We will see you in the Discord.
Yeah.
Let's go watch some good hockey. Dallas Edmonton starting soon, I think, or it
Ooh,
already
real
started.
teams.
Yeah, real hockey teams playing hockey. Go you know what? I really wanted to see Dallas and Carolina to have like the Mikko Rantanen, cup final.
That's fun. Yeah.
It's probably going to be Edmonton and Florida again, which is okay because last year it was pretty cool. My only concern is that it's going to be a 4-game sweep if it's Florida versus Edmonton again, and Edmonton's shaky goaltending will do them in.
Edmonton's got this in the bag. Let's go.
Hey, Chewy says, hit the thumbs up, guys. Appreciate it. Subscribe if you're new. Tamalama, talking to you, buddy. All right.
If you're
see you
old,
guys.
make a burner account. Subscribe again. All right. See you guys.